In the last 12 months, we had over 1.5 million individual DM conversations that resulted in 22,911 sales calls booked and just under $20 million in revenue closed for our clients, all from DM setting. And in today's video, I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm going to show you the DM setting framework behind those 1.5 million conversations and behind those $20 million that we generated through that. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Pleasure to have you. My name is George Nita. I'm the founder of DMsetting.com. We're the largest training and management DM setting company in the entire info coaching industry. And in the last 3 years, we've helped clients generate over $50 million from DM setters specifically. Now, with that being said, I'm going to jump into my computer. I'm going to pull up my Miro board here and I'm going to show you the framework. All right, so first things first, we're going to cover the framework. I have the entire B2C framework laid out here. This works exceptionally well if you sell, again, B2C, so towards the average consumer, the average 9-to-5er. We have different frameworks if you're selling to coaches or if you're selling to agency owners or more B2B services or B2B avatars, but this is going to be primarily focused on B2C. Now, you see all of this is Instagram, Instagram story, Instagram feed post, IG followers. This works for Facebook, this works for LinkedIn, this works for Twitter. Instagram just happens to be the most frequent and the most common platform that we use with our clients. That being said, let's dive in. There's 3 ways we generate conversations for our DM setters. The first one is we have Instagram story call to actions. These are the stories where you do a hand raiser. Hey, I'm looking for 5 people that want to join X, Y, and Z, or hey, I'm launching this new thing, or hey, I just created this new resource. DM me the keyword if you want to get it. Exact same thing with the feed post. Feed posts typically tend to be more resource oriented because it's more mass market and you're typically trying to hook more people with a feed post. Typically, our clients do resources here. It can be any sort of resources, PDFs, videos, VSLs, guides, like literally Google Docs, anything that you can think of. It's enticing and interesting enough to get a large number of people to actually comment. So those are great strategies. And we do those a couple of times a week. And then another really big untapped source here is the IG followers. So a lot of the people that I have conversations with, they're not doing anything with their followers, like at all. They're just letting them sit there. They're not messaging them. So what we do with our DM setters is we have them go in strategically and just pick and choose the people that look like they could fit the ideal client avatar the most or the best. And then they would initiate DM conversations with those leads to get them to convert at a pretty high rate as well. So that being said, those are the 3 main sources. If you're on Facebook, you'd have like Facebook feed posts, you'd have Facebook story posts, and you have like new Facebook group members or like new friends or whatever, right? So you can take the same principle and apply it to different platforms. Now, the first thing here that's going to happen is obviously from those leads, we're going to generate a new conversation. Pretty intuitive, right? So that is the obvious first step. Depending on how that lead is going to come into the inbox, you have a slightly different way of engaging with them. That might be, hey, appreciate you reaching out, or hey, here you go, here's the resource, or hey, appreciate you engaging with my content if you're sending an outbound. Or now the immediate thing that we do afterwards is we get their motivation, regardless of where they come from. If they come from a story, from a feed post, or from an outbound message that we send to a follower, I want to understand what made them reach out, or what made them opt into this resource specifically, or what about this campaign caught their attention, or what about the profile got their attention, what about the specific business model that you're running got their attention. This is the first thing that you want to do. I'm not necessarily going to verbalize it too much here or give too many verbal examples, as I have different videos on the channel where I talk about the more specific scripting and the more in-depth scripting behind this. I'm just going to walk you through the framework because ultimately this is how you need to see it and this is how you need to think of it, as a framework and not as a copy-paste script. And if you're trying to get your DM setters to just follow some copy-paste BS, it's probably not going to work and they're probably not going to convert at the level that they could or should. So I highly encourage you to have a similar framework to this. And if you have a DM team already, or if you're looking to build one, again, really encourage them to use this as a skeleton, to use this as a guide rather than a copy-paste thing, because it's going to incentivize them to think and actually allow them to achieve better results because they're going to be more of a human in your DM conversation. So again, motivation. Hey, what made you reach out? What made you interested in this? What has you looking to learn more about X, Y, and Z? What about this? What about my profile caught your eye, etc., etc.? Or what about Amazon or e-com or whatever it is that you're doing caught your eye, right? So that's motivation right there. Immediately after that, what I want to do is I want to understand if they're familiar with the business model. So again, this can be Amazon, YouTube automation, e-com, trading, a specific niche in trading, like really whatever it is, doesn't really matter as long as it's B2C. We want to have a step in the conversation where we explain the business model. And the reason this is so important is because you want to get people hooked on early in the conversation, because this is going to increase your response rates through every single step throughout the rest of the conversation. Why? Because people know what they're getting into and they feel like they're getting value early on, which is not what a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are like, hey, can I ask you 3 questions? And then they just take without giving. What we're doing here is we're number one giving, and we're creating the perception of value because we're doing so through a voice note, which is very, very important. So it's a voice note from the creator or from the business owner that explains the actual model of the business, drop shipping, YouTube, whatever it is that you're selling. And it's typically less than a minute long. And that, number one, creates connection. Number two, creates the perception of value. People feel like they're getting value from us. And number three, when it's well explained, it gets people hooked. It gets people wanting to learn more, wanting to know more. It gets them seeing themselves doing this, which creates a lot of compliance throughout the rest of the conversation. And then a good way for you to ask a question here that would lead into you being able to explain and send this voice note about the business model would be something along the lines of, well, since you're looking to learn more about this, are you coming in fresh, or like, do you already know something about it? Or do you know how it works, like how this model or unique mechanism works specifically, or would you like me to give you a quick breakdown? Really, it can be anything, right? I don't want you to think too much in scripts. I just want you to see the framework for what it is, a framework, right? So, and then that would obviously open the door for you to be like, no worries, I got you, let me send over a quick breakdown. And then you would send out the voice note. And then at the end of the voice note, what I always like doing is I like getting commitment, and I like asking a question of like, does this make sense? Do you see yourself doing something like this? Does this fit into, your expectation and what you're looking for? Something of that nature tends to work really well. And like 95+% of times, we either get a yes, 4% of times we get a technical question, and then I would say probably 1 or max 2% of times we would get people saying no. Now, the next step here, after you explain the model and after you get the commitment, is discussing about their current situation. And we do this as a means to qualify the person. And the reason I use this step as qualification is because it tells me specifically, number one, well, obviously what they're doing for work, if they're unemployed, if they're a single mom, if they're living on benefits, etc., which is obviously very important information that I need to have later on in the conversation when I'm assessing whether this is a good enough lead to book into a closing call or not. And then number two, it allows me to create a gap from where they're currently at to where they want to be in the future. And it allows the business model and what we're doing in our solution to bridge that gap eventually if the person is actually going to end up being qualified. So a couple of good questions here would be cool. So, since you want to do this, like, what do you do for work right now? How long have you been doing that for? Like, what's it like right now? Like, what has you looking to move away from that and, just do more of this, or even to explore a little bit of the pain points that they're facing with their current work situation. Now, the next step immediately after this is you want to get their desired situation. Now we know their current situation, we know their point A. Now it's time to find out their point B. What is their actual desired situation? Where they want to be in the future? How much they want to make? Do they want to replace? Do they want to supplement their income? What does all of that stuff look like? So this is what we're doing here. And then basically we are creating a gap. What this does for me is it allows me to have leverage, because now I know, hey, this is what you do for work. You want to make this amount of money per month, every single month, and you want to replace your income completely. This is how you're going to do it. You're going to do it through my method, through like my process, through my business opportunity, right? So that's kind of what is going to bridge the gap eventually. One really important thing here that's going to allow you to establish this gap is getting a tangible number from those people. If you don't have a tangible number, it's going to be very hard for you to get a yes when you propose the call or when you try to book them in, because there's no specifics, right? People think in specifics, and if you don't have something tangible, then you say, well, yeah, I want to make a couple $100, or I just want to have a better situation, or I don't really know what to aim for. What do you recommend? Stuff like that. Like, I always want to get to the bottom of it and get a specific number by asking them something along the lines of, well, like, what does the freedom number look like for you? Like, what's the big vision? What's the big goal? What would allow you to have financial location and time freedom, right? So stuff like that to really encourage them to think of a number and say a number. And sometimes I feel like the number is not small enough, or they might not have enough commitment from the number that they tell me. If someone tells me I want to make $3,000 a month, I'm like, yeah, like, that's just around the corner. Like, let's widen it. Let's set a bigger goal, right? Because the bigger the goal is, the more leverage I have to get them into a call and to get them to listen to what we have to say and to basically follow through with every single next step afterwards. And this compliance and increase in response rate and commitment stays throughout the rest of the conversation. So this is why this is so important here. Now, once you get their desired situation, what I like doing is I like backing that up with proof, because we live in an economy right now where proof and trust matters more than anything else. So I really like introducing this at this specific step in the conversation. Once I have a gap, so we've clearly well established a gap right now from point A to point B, I want to bridge that gap by basically sending this personalized results video. It does two things. Number one, it builds credibility, because this is the business owner showing their own results. So if it's an Amazon offer, for example, if you're running an Amazon offer, you just do a selfie video of yourself going in and showing your Amazon dashboard and your Amazon results and the sales in the last 30, 60, 90 days. And then immediately after that, you would switch over to your school community or your Discord community or whatever you hosted. And then you'd go over all the client results that you're having on a day-to-day basis and be like, hey, Johnny from the community, he joined 60 days ago and now he's doing this. And Mariah, she joined, 4 months ago and now she's making this. So stuff like that really builds like a very, very, very strong connection and just creates, again, a lot of trust, a lot of compliance. I want to maximize the chances of them following through with every single next step that I have afterwards. Because as you see here, what I'm doing with every step of the way is I'm just trying to build more commitment. I'm trying to basically maximize compliance so that they follow through when I propose the call, when I send the booking link, when they need to go on the calendar, when they need to answer the questions, and when they need to actually show up at the call. That's how we're able to achieve 70+% show rates, 25%, 30% close rates. Now, what we do here is we typically keep this under 59 seconds. Again, you don't want this too long. We want to be able to send this natively in Instagram as a video. We do it through ManyChat. I'm not going to talk too much about the setup. You can also do it through Instagram if you have a pre-recorded video. It obviously doesn't have to be personalized for every single person. That's how the results video works. So less than 59 seconds. Same for the voice note, by the way, where you explain. Keep this less than 59 seconds. We don't want it to be too long. We want people to be able to view it whenever, whatever they are. If they're on the subway, if they're in a car, if they're we want them to be able to listen in, to be able to watch it very quickly with not a lot of commitment. I don't want them to feel like they have to take time aside to get back to me, because then the response rates are going to drop. Right, so immediately after the results video, we're going to proceed with the call proposal. We typically keep this less than 20 seconds long, and this is also a voice note. So as you see, we're doing a lot of voice notes. We're doing a lot of personal interaction. Why? Because we've seen and we've tested again on like over 1 million DMs, over 1.5 million DMs at this point, that this converts better than just text alone when it's done the right way and when you have the right scripting behind it, or not even scripting, but the right framework behind it, and you say the right things. And obviously you have things to showcase here, like you have real actual results from real people and from yourself that you can show to those leads in the DMs. This works incredibly well. So again, call proposal, less than 20 seconds. We typically started with like, would you be opposed, or do you think it'd be helpful if you were to have a conversation with my lead advisor or my right-hand man, and so on and so forth. From there, after you've done a call proposal, we'd obviously send the booking link. This is pretty standard. I mean, I'm sure you use booking links in your company as well, so I don't have to explain this too much. And then what we always do on the booking links is we have a form, and then based on the form, we decide, or we have an automation that decides whether they're qualified or not, and whether they're actually allowed to book into a closer's calendar or not. So if they are disqualified, what we typically do is we would go back in the inbox and we would do some sort of budget qualification. We would have typically a certain amount of money that they need to have set aside to even be able to start with the specific model that we're selling. So then we would go in, we would qualify on that. If they don't have that, but they're US based and we have access to credit, we would qualify in credit. And then if they don't have that, we would typically downsell them or just send them out to a specific free resource, for example, or to YouTube, or so on and so forth, whatever we might have with the company that we're working with. So that's how that works. And then if they are qualified, then obviously they're going to go into a booked call directly to the closer's calendar. So this entire process is optimized to book in with the closer directly, not to book in with a triager and then have the triager qualify, because obviously if you do that, then you're going to have to pay double commission for your setters. Like it just, in my opinion, doesn't make sense when you can do a lot of this over the DMs. Now, once you get a booked call, the next immediate step that I like doing is we like to confirm the booking and send over personalized resources. So what that means is like, hey, awesome, I just got your booking for Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You're going to be speaking with Chris. He's been with me for X, Y, and Z. And by the way, you should have received an email with a couple of like videos and, resources to go through. Can you confirm you got that for me? So that's the booking confirmation. And then immediately after that, I'm going to send over 1 or 2 personalized resources. We typically have a library of a bunch of different resources with a bunch of different testimonials as well, case studies. And then if I have someone that works in finance, for example, and wants to transition into doing some sort of e-commerce, then I would look for a testimonial from someone that was in a similar place, in a high end, for example, 9 to 5, that managed to transition into this with a couple of hours a week. Or if they say, hey, like I can't because I have 2 kids, I'll be like, hey, look at Sally here. She's a mother of 3 and she was able to do this. Stuff like that tends to really help. And again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to maximize nurturing so that they show up at the highest ratio and they close at the highest ratio, and we would just keep them accountable to watching those resources and going through those resources. From there, we have call reminders. What we typically do here is we do day off and then day before. So we do 2 call reminders over the DMs. First one, so the day before is like, hey, just want to make sure you're all set for the call tomorrow and you actually managed to go through some of those resources. Cool, awesome, that's it. And then the day off is like, hey, do you have the Zoom link or the Google Meet link or whatever platform you're using? If not, let me know. I'll go grab that for you. Again, why? To maximize show rates. Now, the last thing here is the post-call follow-up process. So this is after the sales call happens. If they don't close, we would go in in the DM conversation as the creator and be like, hey name, how's the call with Chris, or like whatever the closer's name is. And then we would get context from the lead that number one, they didn't share with the closer, they weren't comfortable enough sharing with the closer, or they shared with the closer, but the closer wasn't able to handle that specific objection. So we have another shot at trying to handle that objection. Now this has its own framework and its own process and like super in-depth SOP in and of itself. It's probably more complicated than what I just showed you here. And there's going to be other videos in the future dedicated for this specifically on the channel. But what this does basically, it allows me to figure out like what the objections are. I might not get the context immediately from the closer. So if 2 hours after the call I don't hear anything from the closer, I would go in the inbox, I would send out those messages, and I'd find out the context myself from the lead. That's also super helpful because it keeps the needle moving in the sales process. Number one. Number two, obviously, we're able to see the lead's perspective, not just the closer's perspective saying the lead is shit. When the lead says, oh yeah, the closer was too pushy, or, you know, this happened on the call, or that happened on the call, like whatever, right? You'd be surprised the things that you find out that closers do on calls, like once you actually start doing this, and once you start asking your leads for feedback as the business owner. It's super funny. But the whole point of this is to be able to do objection handling, right? So the closer couldn't handle a specific objection, or the lead didn't share it with the closer, but because we're speaking as the owner, as the creator, we obviously have the creator's authority, so the lead is much more likely to actually open up and share those specific things with the creator themselves rather than the representative or the closer of the creator for that matter. So what this does, it uncovers a whole lot of, you know, objections, thoughts, you know, roadblocks, things that they didn't otherwise share with the closer, and allows us as DM sellers to be in a position where we can play a role in handling those and either finalizing the sale over the DMs, or just pipelining them for the future, or handling the objection right then and there, booking them for a second call, and then them turning into a closed deal. So that being said, this is the framework. This is what it looks like. Again, it's just a framework, so please take it for what it is, a framework, not a script. Again, there's other videos on the channel dedicated to the scripting, and there's going to be more coming up. Now, if you want to find out more about what dmsetting.com does and how we might be able to help you, there's a link in the description below this video. Feel free to go there, head over on the website, take a look at that, see what we have there, see if you resonate with the process. If it makes sense, feel free to put an application. You'll speak directly to me, and we'll see if this actually makes sense and if we can build a DM process or a DM funnel for you that does anywhere between $100,000 to $300,000 a month, which is typically what we're able to achieve when we build those funnels for clients. So that being said, appreciate you sticking to the end. See you in the next one.